At first, there is almost nothing. Shapes exist, but they refuse to introduce themselves. The air feels full, yet empty at the same time. This is the hour before names, before morning decides what it will become. The birds are already here, not awake, not asleep, just present in the dark. They do not wait for the sun to confirm their existence. They have been breathing this whole time. We are used to beginnings being announced. Alarms, light switches, first messages of the day. Here, nothing announces itself. Visibility arrives slowly, as if the world is remembering how to appear. A shape moves. It could be a chicken, or it could just be motion. At this distance, the difference doesn't matter. We often think clarity brings meaning, that once things are fully visible, they will finally make sense. But in this half-light, life is already happening without permission. The birds shift their weight. A duck lowers its head. The ground responds with a sound too small to identify. Nothing here is waiting for an explanation. We are the ones squinting, trying to recognize what we are seeing. The day does not rush to help us. It reveals itself at its own pace. This moment is uncomfortable for us. Not dark enough to rest, not bright enough to act. Suspended between knowing and not knowing. We spend much of our lives here, between decisions, between versions of ourselves, calling it transition, as if that makes it temporary. The birds do not label this hour. They move when they feel movement is needed. They pause when it isn't. The light increases by degrees. Feathers begin to separate from shadow. A fence line becomes visible. Not as a boundary yet, just as a line. We learn early to fear lines. Lines that divide, lines that limit. But before a line becomes a wall, it is just a difference in space. The birds test it with their bodies. They don't resent it. They incorporate it. We tend to fight what we cannot yet see clearly. Or worse, we ignore it until it becomes unavoidable. The sun is still absent, yet the world is no longer hidden. This is how most changes happen. Not suddenly, but gradually enough that we convince ourselves nothing has changed at all. A chicken steps forward. The motion is unremarkable, and yet it breaks the stillness completely. We often wait for permission to begin, a sign, a confirmation, a guarantee. The birds begin without any of these. They do not need certainty. They only need enough light to avoid walking into something solid. We ask for much more than that. We want to see the whole path, where it leads, how long it takes, whether it will be worth it. So we stay still long after movement is possible. The ducks appear more clearly now. Their outlines soften the darkness. They move as if the day belongs to them, even though it has not officially arrived. Ownership is a human idea. Here, nothing is owned. Space is shared. Time is entered, not controlled. The light continues its quiet work. It does not negotiate. It does not hurry because we are watching. We think visibility equals safety, that once everything is clear, we will finally relax. But clarity brings its own demands. Decisions become unavoidable. Paths become obvious. Responsibility sharpens. In the dark, we are allowed to simply exist. Perhaps that is why this hour feels heavy. It asks nothing, and yet it does not last. A sound becomes identifiable. A bird pecks at the ground. Another follows. The day begins without ceremony. No announcement. No promise. Just participation. We often say we are waiting for our moment. But moments do not arrive fully formed. They emerge the way this light does, slowly enough to be missed. The birds do not celebrate morning. They do not mark it as special. It is simply when seeing becomes easier. We attach meaning later, sometimes too much meaning, enough to weigh the day down before it even starts. The sun is still not visible, and yet everything is already here. Movement, sound, life. We imagine beginnings as bright lines between before and after, but most beginnings look like this. Unclear. Gradual. Almost disappointing. Until we realize we are already inside them. The birds do not step into the day. The day forms around them. And we are here too. Watching shapes become familiar. Watching uncertainty thin out into detail. Not learning a lesson. Just witnessing how existence does not wait for full understanding before continuing. As the light grows steadier, details begin to insist on being noticed. Feathers show their texture. The ground reveals uneven places. What was once a blur becomes a collection of small realities. This is usually where we believe understanding begins, when things are clear enough to be categorized, named, placed into mental drawers. But clarity does not bring peace here. It brings activity. The birds begin to move with more intention. Not urgency, just direction. A chicken walks toward feed, not because it has decided the day's priority, but because hunger has reached a certain point. There is no internal conversation about this. The body speaks. The body is answered. We remember a time when this was true for us as well, before we learned to negotiate with ourselves, before we delayed instinct in exchange for approval. Now, when the body speaks, we ask it to wait. There are emails. There are expectations. There is a version of ourselves we are trying to maintain. Here, no image needs to be protected. The birds do not perform competence. They do not pretend to be fine when they are cold, or hungry, or tired. They respond, and the moment passes. We tend to carry moments with us, stack them, revisit them. A single hesitation in the morning can echo for years in a human life. Here, hesitation dissolves the moment movement resumes. The sun is still low enough to cast long shadows. Shadows stretch across the ground, like reminders that time is, in fact, moving. But no one here is counting. We count because we are afraid of losing something. Time, opportunity, relevance. We measure to reassure ourselves that existence is not slipping through unnoticed. The birds do not fear being forgotten. Forgetting requires an audience. Here, there is only participation. A duck pauses near the edge of the frame. It looks neither cautious nor confident, just attentive. Attentive without judgment is something we struggle to maintain. We are trained to evaluate everything as it appears. Is this useful? Is this productive? Is this leading somewhere? The birds ask none of these questions. They are alert without being anxious, present without being self-aware. This balance feels unreachable to us, not because it is complex, but because it requires letting go of control. Control has become our substitute for trust. Trust in the body, trust in time, trust that not every moment must justify itself. The light continues to settle. Morning has now arrived by most definitions, and yet nothing dramatic has happened. No transformation, no revelation, just a gradual increase in visibility and movement. This is how most lives unfold, not as stories with clear turning points, but as long sequences of subtle adjustments. We remember only the peaks and valleys. The birds live in the slope between them. A chicken steps aside to let another pass. There is no resentment in this gesture. Space is negotiated without conflict. We, on the other hand, often turn small inconveniences into personal narratives. Why did this happen to me? What does this say about my place here? Here, nothing says anything. Events do not comment on identity. They simply occur.